Okay, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a deep dive into Leviticus chapter 27.
Ah, yes, the end of Leviticus.
Exactly. And if you know Leviticus, it's full of laws, but chapter 27, it feels a bit different. It sets up this whole system, really, for vows and dedicating things to the Lord.
It really does. It's all about how you assign value, monetary value, even to people, animals, property, when you make a special vow.
And how you can potentially get them back, the redemption part.
Precisely. It shows this incredible intertwining of the sacred and the practical, everyday economics of ancient Israel.
Yeah, it's not just I promise, it's, okay, here's the process, here's the cost.
Incredibly detailed rules for everything from people down to your farm produce.
Let's start with the people part, because that's pretty striking. You could make a vow dedicating a person, and the text lays out specific monetary values.
It does. Based on age and sex, it's quite the system.
So what were the values?
Okay, so for a male, aged 20 to 60, sort of prime working years, you might say the value was 50 shekels of silver. Sanctuary shekels, specifically. 50. And for a female in that same age range, 30 shekels. Okay, a noticeable difference there. What about younger people, say kids and teenagers?
Right, the value adjusts. For a male's 5 to 20 years old, it was 20 shekels. Females in that group were 10 shekels.
10, okay. And really young children.
From 1 month up to 5 years old, it was 5 shekels for a boy, 3 for a girl.
3 shekels, wow. And older folks, over 60?
15 shekels for a male 60 and above, and 10 shekels for a female.
So you have this clear hierarchy, probably based on what perceived ability or contribution within that vow system.
Likely something like that. But importantly, the system wasn't totally rigid.
How so? What if you made the vow but, didn't actually have 50 shekels?
That's a key point. There's a provision for poverty. If the person making the vow simply couldn't afford the set amount, they'd bring the dedicated person to the priest.
And the priest decides. Yes. The priest would assess what the vower could realistically pay and set the value accordingly. So the vow could still be fulfilled, but adjusted for their means.
Okay, that makes sense. The priest acts as an arbiter based on the situation.
Exactly.
All right, so that's people. What comes next? Animals.
Animals, yes. Another category you could dedicate through a vow. And here the rules split based on the type of animal.
Clean versus unclean, I assume, like for sacrifices.
Precisely. So if you vow a clean animal, one that could be offered,
What happens then?
the moment you vow it, it's holy, belongs entirely to the Lord. And here's the thing. No substitutions. Absolutely none.
You can't swap it out. Like, if you vowed a decent sheep but had a really great one later, you couldn't switch.
Nope. Can't swap good for bad or even bad for good. It's fixed.
And if you tried anyway,
Big consequence. If you even attempt a substitution, the rule is that both the original animal and the substitute become holy.
whoa. So trying to game it just doubles down the dedication.
Exactly. And neither could be redeemed then. It really locks it in.
Okay, that's a strong message. What about the unclean animals, the ones you couldn't offer?
Right. If you vow an unclean animal, you bring it to the priest. The priest checks it out, decides its quality, good or bad, and sets a value.
And can you get that one back?
Yes.
Hmm.
Unlike the clean ones, these can be redeemed by the owner, but there's a cost.
Let me guess. Adding a fifth.
You got it, 20%. You pay the priest's valuation plus 1/5 extra, and you get the animal back.
And if you don't redeem it,
Then it's just sold at the value the priest set.
okay, so that 20% redemption fee is becoming a theme. We saw it just now with unclean animals.
And you see it again with houses.
Right, dedicating your house, similar process.
Very similar. A person dedicates their house as holy. The priest comes, assesses its quality, sets the value. That value is binding.
And redemption.
Same deal.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
the original owner wants it back, they pay the priest's valuation plus that extra 1/5, the 20%. Then the house is theirs again.
So dedicate, value set, belongs to the Lord. Redeem, pay value plus 20%, get it back. Seems straightforward enough for houses and unclean animals.
It is, but land gets more complicated.
Because of the year of Jubilee.
Exactly. Land ownership, inheritance, the Jubilee reset, it all plays into how dedicated land is handled. And it matters if it's family land or land you bought.
Okay, let's break that down. Family land first, your ancestral inheritance. How's that valued if you vow it?
There's a formula. It's based on the seed needed to sow it. 50 shekels of silver per homer of barley seed.
A homer. That's a volume measure.
Yes, a dry measure. So it ties the value to the land's potential productivity in a way.
Okay, 50 shekels per homer of seed is the baseline. Now, how does Jubilee mess with that?
Right. The Jubilee year, every 50 years, all ancestral land went back to the original family. So the timing of the dedication matters.
So if you dedicate it right at the start of a Jubilee cycle.
Then the full value applies 50 shekels per homer of seed. But if you dedicate it, say, 10 years into the cycle.
The value goes down.
Exactly. The priest calculates the value based only on the number of years left until the next Jubilee. It's prorated, because you're only dedicating the use of it for that remaining time before it would revert anyway.
That makes perfect sense. The value reflects the remaining duration of possession. Can the family redeem it?
Yes, the original owner can. They pay the priest the calculated value.
Plus the 20%.
Plus the 20%. Pay that, and the field is theirs again.
But what if they don't redeem it? Or say, what if they'd already sold the rights to use it to someone else before vowing it?
Good question. If the dedicated family land isn't redeemed by the original vower, or if they had sold it, then it cannot be redeemed later.
So it's stuck.
Essentially. And when the Jubilee year comes, that unredeemed dedicated family land, it doesn't go back to the original family.
Where does it go then?
It becomes permanently holy. The text says it's like a field devoted to the Lord, and it becomes the property of the priests. Permanently.
Wow, okay. So failure to redeem your family's dedicated land means it eventually becomes priestly land forever? That's huge.
It is. It underscores the seriousness of the vow and the importance of redemption for family inheritance.
Okay, now what about the other case? Dedicating a field you bought, not inherited.
If you bought a field so it wasn't your ancestral portion and you dedicate it, the priest again figures out the value based on the years left until Jubilee. Just like the prorated calculation for family land dedicated mid-cycle.
And the person pays that value.
Yes, they pay that assessed value. It's considered holy to the Lord.
And what happens to that field at the Jubilee? Does it also go to the priests?
No, this is different. Because it was bought land, not the dedicator's ancestral inheritance, at the Jubilee, it reverts back to the original owner's family.
The family from who it was bought in the first place.
Exactly. It goes back to its ancestral roots. The Jubilee restores the original family lines, even overriding the dedication of a temporary owner.
Yeah, that really highlights the priority given to inherited land.
Absolutely. And just as a standard measure for all these numbers we're throwing around.
The shekel?
Right. Verse 25 clarifies, every valuation uses the sanctuary shekel, which equals 20 gerahs. So there's a consistent standard for these sacred finances.
Good to know. A standard unit for everything. Okay, besides these main categories, the chapter hits some special cases, right? Exceptions.
Yes, a couple of important ones. First, firstborn animals.
Can you dedicate those by vow?
No, the text is clear. The firstborn of livestock, whether ox or sheep, already belongs to the Lord. They are holy by default. You can't vow something that's already designated his.
Makes sense. They're automatically set apart.
Exactly. Now, if the firstborn happens to be an unclean animal...
When you can't sacrifice.
Right. Then the owner has a choice. They can buy it back, redeem it by paying its value plus the 20% premium.
The redemption fee again?
Or... if they don't redeem it, it has to be sold at the priest's set value. So even though it wasn't vowed, there's a process if it's an unclean firstborn.
Got it. So firstborns are handled differently. And then there's this other term, devoted. How is that different from dedicated by a vow?
This is a really critical distinction. It's a different Hebrew word, cherem. While dedication involves a vow, valuation, and often the possibility of redemption.
Devotion is more intense.
Much more. Something devoted, whether it's a person, animal, or land, cannot be sold or redeemed ever. Full stop.
No redemption at all.
None. It's described as most holy to the Lord. The implication is permanent, irreversible consecration.
Wow.
And it gets even more serious. The text specifically says that any person who is devoted, sometimes translated devoted to destruction, cannot be ransomed. They must be put to death.
That's incredibly stark.
It is. It shows that devotion, cherem, is a category beyond the transactional nature of vows. It signifies something utterly removed from ordinary use, sometimes in a very severe way.
That gives most holy a very powerful and final meaning in that context. Okay, so after covering vows, redemption, exceptions, devotion, the chapter ends with tithes.
Right, the basic tithe. A tenth of the land's produce, grain, fruit, and a tenth of your animals, the herd and flock.
And the status of that tithe.
It belongs to the Lord. It's holy to the Lord, inherently.
Can you redeem that Like, if you needed the grain that was set aside as the 10th?
For the produce, tithe, grain, or fruit, yes, you can redeem it. But
2% extra.
you know the drill. Pay its
Yeah.
value plus 1/5.
Okay. What about the animal tithe? The 10th cow or sheep?
That's handled differently. It's
Yeah.
literally every 10th animal that passes under the shepherd's staff. That 10th one automatically becomes holy.
And can you swap that one if the 10th sheep is scrawny but the 11th is great?
Absolutely not. Just like the vowed clean animals, you cannot pick and choose. Good for bad, bad for good. No substitutions.
And if you try,
Same rule again. If you substitute, both the original 10th animal and the substitute become holy. And crucially, neither can be redeemed.
it really seems like any attempt to manipulate things once they're declared holy, whether by vow, birth, devotion, or tithe, just results in more becoming holy and usually losing the chance to redeem.
It's a consistent principle throughout the chapter. Holiness, once established according to these rules, is serious business, and attempts to alter it improperly have consequences. And the chapter closes by saying these are the commands given at Sinai.
Wow. Okay, so we've walked through this incredibly detailed system, dedicating people, animals, houses, land, each with specific values, redemption rules, the whole Jubilee interaction, the huge difference between dedication and devotion, and finally, tithes. It's way more complex than just making a promise.
It really paints a picture of a society where the relationship with the divine permeated economic life, with clear structures for how vows and holy things were managed financially and legally.
Yeah. Thinking about all this, the valuations, the 20% redemption, the permanence of devotion compared to dedication, the specific land rules, what does this intricate system suggest to you about how they understood holiness itself? What does it mean for something or someone to truly belong to God in this framework? Especially considering those sharp distinctions like between inherited land and bought land or dedicated versus devoted. What underlying principle do you think these rules point towards?